Hello and welcome everybody to the artist talk on why science needs art. My name is Lisa Butzenlechner. I'm the director of the Austrian Cultural Forum and part of the Austrian Embassy in Ottawa. So our mandate is to be the focal point to promote Austrian culture and art in Canada. And this is with a big honor that when we heard that the Austrian-based artist Daniela Brill Estrada was chosen to exhibit in the course of this research week. And you can see her a piece of art, it's called Our Celestial Bodies. You can have a look at it after the talk, and we will hear more about it in this artist talk. So Daniela, she's was born in Bogotá, Colombia, but is now based in Vienna. She's currently doing a PhD on art and science. I hope she will also elaborate on her newest research. And she's also an artist in residence at the SETI Institute and the University of Buffalo. Today, she will have a talk with Dr. Roberta Buiani, an interdisciplinary artist, media scholar, and curator based in Toronto. She's the co-founder of the ArtSci Salon at the Fields Institute for Research in Mathematical Science and co-director of SloLab at York University. So that's from my side. I would like to have Roberta and Daniela on the stage with me. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi. Hello. So, I don't know, should I present you? Thank you, Lisa, for presenting us. So today, so we were considering what to say, and so the artist talk. So there's going to be an artist talk, but we thought that we would also address the issue of the representation of the arts within the sciences, and also the relationship, the current relation between art and science, and what better way to do it that present the artworks that are exhibited here today. You probably have already admired some of the artworks here, some of the installations. You're wondering what they are about. The little snippet does not really give a lot of descriptions, and we thought that they were really speaking to the current relation between the arts and the sciences. So we will contextualize those. We will show you some of the slides that we took today of the exhibition. We will talk about the artworks. Daniela will present her work and place everything in context of their own art practice, and then we will engage a little bit in what kind of in questions about what is it about? Why should we engage art and science together? And just to say a few words about what's at stake with me. I'm also an artist, but only a part-time artist. I'm not a full-time artist. But importantly, my work is perfectly located at the intersection of art and science, as in I have founded a lab and small collective of artists, scientists, and people who work in the technologies. And this is supposed to be an interdisciplinary group called the ArtSci Salon. We are operating out of the Fields Institute for Research in Mathematical Sciences, so a scientific institution. And we were fortunate to be given a floor for our activities. what really characterizes us and what really stands, like what really differentiates us from any other organization in Toronto and also in many parts of Canada is the fact that we consider art, science, and technologies at the same level. We do not believe that art is below science. We believe that art and science should be together and should be allies and non-competitors. And art should not be, for example, just embellishment of science or a way to explain science, but should also share its own tenets and its own spirit of curiosity and its own research methodologies. In this way, we can bring forth new visions and also see things that single disciplines do not see on their own. But this later. So I don't know, do you want to start like talking about these marvelous art? So I should say that I was here only this morning. I know about these artworks, but Daniela was here installing yesterday with Sophia and other people and the artists. So, you know, a lot about these arts.
Thank you. Yeah, and I wanted to point out the name of the talk is Why Science Needs Art. And I think these are beautiful examples of how artistic processes and artistic results, can you say, like artistic practices, have an impact on scientific research and on scientific doing and on perceiving nature and researching it and studying the body specifically in this case. So yeah, this exhibition that Sophia curated so beautifully is a beautiful exhibition full of examples of how artistic practices can support different ways of studying the human body and of researching in medicine into medicine. This first project that we have on the right, the painting, it's a watercolor painting by Kamaldeep Randhawa. And he was telling me yesterday that it is a watercolor and it was his first painting with watercolor. And it's for me, it's also like the story of this. He was telling me like the process during pandemics and the person being isolated and then the heart like slowly rupturing. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I think this is a like another way of perceiving that moment and another way of perceiving a human state and a human emotion. Yeah. The next one. You want to talk about Ron?
So the next one is by Ron Wild, and it's called Pathomap. So Ron Wild is known in the arts and science community for creating these very, very big maps. Actually, unfortunately, I don't have my computer with me, but he has a whole site where you can go and literally explore these artworks. His practice is, so he's always collaborating with practitioners like scientists or medical practitioners or mathematicians. Actually, at the Fields Institute, there's one of his artworks, and he's so this work presents parts that are all together for me a whole. His work highlights the different components that are contained within a discipline and shows the diversity and the differentiation of the different parts that at the end work all together in collaborations and form a whole. In this case, you have several patho images, so images of pathology, and they're all meshed together. They seem to be creating a chaos, but they're not really chaotic because you can see that they are very carefully put together so that they show the connectivity between these two. One of the reasons why he's doing this kind of work is because when you're looking at a field like for example, oncology, you have so many disciplines that are collaborating with each other in order to bring a patient to the path of health. And you also have a relationship that occurs between the practitioner and the researcher, between the practitioner, the oncologist, the radiologist, the nurse, and all the people all the way up and all the way down of the ladder in a healthcare system. And so it is important that his work is portraying all of this.
Thank you.
I hope he's listening from home. I hope I did a good job. Oh, I should also address this one. This is from Nadia Prendergast. She's a nurse practitioner, I believe, and her two panels are titled Imposter Syndrome and Ain't I a Nurse? You probably recognize the style, well, maybe yes, maybe not, of Ain't I a Nurse? It's channeling Ain't I a Woman from Sojourner. God. Sorry, my brain is like, anyway, so it's a famous phrase, and it was pronounced by a Black woman who was advocating for racial she was advocating against slavery and for human equality, racial equality, and in these two panels, this artist is portraying the profound inequality that is within the health practice. It's not only the health practice, but it's also the academic path towards this health practice. In order to become a nurse, and in order to become a professional in any field, if you're a person who's been isolated or has been excluded, regularly excluded from the profession, it's very hard in the sense that you're the imposter syndrome is this fear of not performing well, or fear of having become what you are because you've been faking it all along, and you're going to be found out at any time. And this is typical of people who are coming from low class, or people who are racialized, immigrants, people who have been told for their entire life, you're not really worth it. And of course, Ain't I a Nurse? You see, I guess it speaks for itself, and I already addressed that, so enough for this. But I really appreciate the fact that the work is here and is fabulous.
So at the end of the hallway, there are two interactive pieces, and both of them are artistic research projects that research the topic of the end of life, which I guess is a topic that should be really visible and seen, especially if you're in a hospital or working with health and with the body. And so this first one is by the Health Design Studio at OCAD University, and it's called Threads of Time. And the people who walk by are invited to write and to weave their own time and to weave their own like beginning of and end of the idea of what time means for them too. So I see from yesterday to today that it has been yeah, that a lot of people have been taking part in the project, which is really beautiful, because I think this is so personal, and it's so beautiful that people are just like putting themselves in that paper and sharing their experience, which is for me part of an artistic process and an artistic practice, to look at yourself and ask yourself, what is this for me? And then try to put it in words, and then be part of be part of a showcase, and be out there for other people to see and to read your thoughts and your processes and your perspectives. Yeah, this is the first interactive one. And the second one is by artist Anupama Krishnan, and it's called Design for Care Conversations. And it is also a research project around the topic of end of life. And the difference is that this one aims at creating this designing the spaces to care for these thoughts on end of life. So the research question is, what matters most to you at end of life, and why? Which is a big question because how yeah, like the same as the previous one, like people really need to take a look at themselves and their emotions and their processes, and be able to write them down, which is another step, and then be part of the installation. Yeah, these are the last two ones at the end. And this is my project that you see here, that Lisa already presented a bit at the beginning. And yeah, I'm very excited that this project is here. This piece has been traveling the world, and for me, my favorite places where it can be is in public spaces or schools, or in Bogotá, in Colombia, we showed it in a mall, like a shopping mall. And here it's just like around, you can actually go closer to the little bottles and see what it is, which you would not be able to do so easily in an artistic space, like in a museum or a gallery. So I'm really enjoying seeing it here. And this project started in 2018. As part of a research project with the Natural History Museum in Vienna and the European Space Agency. It was part of an exhibition by the European Space Agency and the Hubble Space Telescope, and the open call was about like asking artistic proposals that would get closer to the research done by the Hubble Space Telescope. And I've been researching the origin of life from an artistic perspective, like the origin of biochemical life from an artistic perspective for years now. So I chose to do this installation, which is a collection of, I tried all the chemical elements. Of course, here you have 66 examples of them. Not only because you cannot collect all of them, because most, like the radioactive ones, of course, it's, or some of them are impossible to find. But also because it's a very organic installation. So what you see is the minerals, like the chemical element in their mineral form or in their liquid form or in whatever form we find in the place where we are, like locally. And you can read on the labels where it originated in the cosmos. Like, so every chemical element is born out of the death of a star, we could say, like the explosion of a star, or the when they explode against it, like when they collide, that's the word I was. And you can also see the ones that are part of the human body. So you can connect, for example, the carbon in your DNA with its cosmic origin, and then with the graphite in your pencil or in the diamonds or whatever. And so for me, it was also like finding a connection from the cosmos to the local Earth and to what is the difference between those carbon atoms and my body, my living body. So why what is the difference inside of them, or why are some of them alive and why are some of them graphite, in the form of graphite? So I think those were the pictures.
And we really thank the weather for this beautiful background. So I think we should just take, like, starting from your artwork, I think we should take apart all of the exhibition and find some common denominators. And one of the things you just mentioned was the connection between the macro and the micro, and how, but not just that, it's also how when we are thinking about our body as a separate from everything else, and we tend to isolate it from the environment, this is not the case, because we are the environment, we are the earth, the soil, we are the stars, we are made from the same common minerals and common atoms that the whole universe is made of. And this should give us pause regarding how the way in which we are in this world. And I think that this is also something that is very common in all the other installations. In every single one of them, there is an element that shows the connectivity of parts, starting from Kamal's heart that is broken, but is broken because of a series of events that have happened. And it shows how our body cannot, like, we are social animals, we cannot stay separate from the rest of the world. And the pandemic really showed us big time how this affects our body. And actually the previous presentation showed it very well. Ron Wild, who took this into the medical field, like how different parts are connected, and how in the other installations for life is threaded with time, and with, like, every bodies is connected with each other. But I wanted to ask you, Daniela, about your specific work. So what inspired you to think in this way? And, like, why are you so interested? Because I know that all the other pieces of yours are considering, like, the big picture in relation to a small part. So what is your thought about this?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with a comment on what you said previously, and then maybe I can easily go into the answer of your question. I think going back to the question of why science needs art. Usually artists are taught to perceive the world with their bodies. So they are taught to look at the colors and represent them, or they are taught to, or we are taught to listen to the things and try to understand the melodies, or try to. So we experience the world, and then we try to grasp what is interesting to us. And in art and science practices, we even go as far as doing research and going into scientific research with this perception, with this artistic perception. And if we look into thoughts of decoloniality or complexity sciences, we can go back in time to a moment where medicine and art was actually the same, which was not so long ago, because medicine and art got divided by the West, like what, 4,000 years ago or something like yesterday. So before that, the medicine was done by the person by the poet or by the singer, or, you know, like the perception of the sensible perception of the world was done by people doing science. And I think this is going a little bit into that direction again, like bringing the senses and the body and the perception again into the medical sciences, which only can add to medical research and to medical perspectives and to scientific in general. You know, like whenever you talk to science in general and you put a bit of the body inside of it, you're only adding to it. So going back to your question, I think this is a bit of where I start. So I start in a way of trying to perceive the world from a different perspective, to also to break the molds a little bit. Yeah, like to say, like, okay, why am I talking about minerals? Why am I talking? Why am I giving you, for example, the little bottles with gold? Why is gold so important for me? Because when I have this perspective of the macro and the micro and the macro, then I can tell you that gold is part of the living system of the earth. It's part of our living system. So maybe I can give you an example that is that might be funny for you as medicine people, because I have had conversations with people who mine the earth for minerals. So with people mining for gold in Colombia. I'm from Colombia, for example. And they say we can mine the gold because the gold is not alive. So the gold is a mineral. It's just gold. We can just take it out. We're not doing anything. And then I was thinking, it's like if I told you, okay, I'm going to mine the iron of your blood, but only the iron atoms. Everything else will stay the same. I'm not going to, the iron is it's the same, like it's a metal. I'm not doing anything to your body. I'm just taking out the metal, like you're taking out the metal from the earth. So this is another perspective of that. And then you are putting the body into the thinking, into like putting the body again, like the human perception and the human sensibility again. So yeah, it's from a very critical perspective too.
But also, so if I may, so one thing that we've been, and we are all guilty of that, because the system we are in is is discouraging us from connecting the dots. We are all told since we start going to school that we have to be focused on one specific discipline. We have to specialize, and this is where we are losing the perspective of the whole, right? And I find that by putting this back into your world and into your artwork is actually very beneficial, because it makes people aware of the connectivity of the body with the whole, and which is something that we have lost in our way of thinking. This is also something that I want to bring back into the discussion of the exhibition, and also the discussion of your work, and a discussion of like why science needs the arts. The arts also does something that the sciences have kind of lost or forgotten, which is putting back the human into the practice. We are always pressed for time. We don't have time. We have like, what is it? Like your family doctor has only 15 minutes for you. Don't think that your doctor is going to treat you like a human being. Also, we see so much suffering that we kind of push the humanity of people out because we don't want to be involved, right? So, but this can be done through the arts. The arts can actually put back the human and the humanity inside the arts. And this is a big component that I think that can be used as a complement, as a complementary item that goes side by side science and side by side medicine, in this case, in the medical sciences. So I don't know if we had a whole discussion between the two of us when we were preparing this discussion, this dialogue.
Yes, because it's not only, I mean, art is not only these installations. So I was telling Roberta this morning that I started recently a PhD, and I'm researching artists who are actually making an input into medicine from a critical perspective, from their with their artistic practice. So one of them that I can tell you about, because it's a very clear example of why art needs science, is an artist from Australia, Amanda Bennett, and she has developed in her artistic practice some biosensors to measure her own muscle fatigue. So she has multiple sclerosis like me, I also have this, and she developed sensors for her muscle fatigue, and she put them in the museum, like it's her artwork. So now her and me are working together into this new installation for people with MS, but we're artists. So what can we give medicine out of our perspectives? It's that we have been through this embodied and sensible experience of going through having multiple sclerosis and feeling the muscle fatigue and feeling the pain and feeling all of these things that you can only understand when you experience them. And this is what artists do, experience. That's why I started the whole thing saying this, like we are taught to perceive and we are taught to experience. And we are taught to take that experience and put it into something, into an object or a drawing or a poem or whatever it is. So I think that nowadays, science and in all of the paths of science are welcoming artists because they are looking for this embodied perspective, and they are looking for this sensible perspective, and they are looking for what I think you also have a lot in your work, in your artistic work, like the guts to do the things without being scared of science or research or papers or journals or how is it called? Peer reviews or stuff like that, you know, like you do it because it's art and because you love it and because you have the experience to do it. So I think this also resonates with you a lot. And I think this is something that is happening right now.
I mean, the arts also, it's like, sometimes I make the comparison between the arts and like sitting at a table and having some food, right? When you're having some food, a good meal with a friend, it's easier to bring up like difficult thinking. And so the same with the arts. You're sitting in front of an art piece and, for example, think about the end of life is very difficult, especially if you're emotionally invested in it. But it is something that should make you think, like, in the end, we all, like, our life always ends. We go back to where we came from. But we don't think of it as something natural. We think of it as something unnatural. But sitting in front of that artwork, you are brought to think about it. And you're brought to think about it as something that is more natural, something that you can address, that you can cope with. So the idea of coping is something that I've been very much interested in also as an artist, as a scholar, etc. So so we have just passed a big like catastrophic event, which is the pandemic. But we don't know. This is a very complicated event. It's a very complicated event, like climate change, like political upheaval, like the like unsure situation we are living in these days, right? And we don't know how to address it. There will not be any visualization or any statistics or any complicated calculations that will bring any certainty to any of these things. We will not be able to understand viruses or bacteria or these very small organisms to the extent that we can avoid them completely. We have to live with them. And so a big lesson is, how do you do this? Do you create new technologies to address them, or do you learn how to cope with them? Do you learn how to coexist with them? And I'm not saying coexisting with them like letting them go loose, but understanding that they are part of our world and we need to live with them in some way. So
yeah. I don't know if you would if you're okay with me saying this, but Roberta just wrote a book that I really wanna.
I just published a book on viruses.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Not from a scientific perspective, but there's science as well.
Yeah, not from a scientific perspective. That's why it's interesting for you too, to read it from an artistic perspective too.
But yeah, there's a lot of artists have addressed these topics, and they did it as part of their artistic practice, but they did it also as part of their research. And some of them have actually collaborated with scientists and have contributed to their to build like a body of research together.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of research being done by artists.
And there's so many ways in which art and science can go hand to hand, like hand on hand, like side by side, without having any unbalance, but by being allies. And some of the ways are, for instance, by learning how to communicate with each other. Because of course we all use our own jargon, and sometimes we say the same things, but we don't understand each other because we have different vocabulary to say it. So this is an ally that is actually very useful. And it's also a good way to be able to have a conversation that goes from the researcher to the practitioner to the patient in certain cases, or from, and this is something that we don't know how to do, and this has been demonstrated during the pandemic big time. Scientists cannot communicate with the public. And another thing that is more important, they cannot say that the results are uncertain. And this is a big problem that we saw created a lot of mistrust and uncomfortable situations throughout the pandemic. So, but if you do it through the arts, artists can say that they are uncertain because their work is about uncertainty. So they will be listened to.
Yeah, that's true. It's two ways of of existing. But I do think that they can nourish each other. I mean, I'm sure of it. Yeah.
So I don't know if we should we open to, do you want to, so we can continue for like ever because we've been talking about it for a long time, but it would be nice if people had some questions or had some doubts. Yeah, thank you. I think you too. I don't know, we can give you. I can give you mine. Yeah, we can share one.
For sure.
Thank you both so very much for the thoughts and reflections. I think it's quite incredible that we get to experience the voice and the perspectives from two artists, which we don't typically see in the healthcare context. It's very much about numbers and results and outcomes, not necessarily about the experience, which is what you're both representing today. I have a question for both of you, actually, and has to do with the topic that you just addressed, Roberta, with respect to scientists being unable to communicate with the regular public and potentially art becoming that medium through which the scientific results and this idea of uncertainty can be communicated a lot faster. We do know that the issue with misinformation and disinformation that our public is constantly being exposed to is quite problematic, particularly in a healthcare field. People are making really poor decisions based on what they hear from groups of friends or people with other kinds of intentions that want to warp their sense of reality in a way. So how do you see the role of artists? And I love the idea of working, like the artists and the scientists working hand in hand and being placed at the same level as opposed to one lower than the other. So what do you see the role here for artists to engaging into these kinds of difficult conversations to be able to, I guess, demonstrate to the public what we are seeing in the scientific world and where the results are, so that they can be a better understanding. And I love the idea of including the human experience into the whole thing, because science can be really dry sometimes.
Yeah, and it's medicine. It's the science about the body, and it's with humans that, yeah, maybe you can.
So I find that so the problem is not just the scientist. Like I said, well, the scientists cannot communicate. It's not it's not a problem within the scientists or within the public. The problem is the system we are in. Yeah. That we are assuming that science is a perfect and definite type of discipline, and so we as patients or we as consumers of science are led to think that there is only one answer for things, or we assume that the scientist is this person of authority who will not change their mind. One thing that can be done is to have like campaigns or have shows in which you demonstrate that science is experimental discipline that changes all the time. And there's tons and tons of examples of artists who created these multiple, these exhibitions that have multiple parts. And I think that, like, for example, Ron is one of the exponents of them. Like there's, so to show the public that science is not a monolith, is made of different parts, and it's also made of humans, but it's clearly made of different parts, and it changes all the time. And it's not just about innovation, but it's also about mistakes, unfortunately, but that's what it is. So I mean, like I don't have a clear answer to it, but I've seen that by showing by creating exhibitions that actually show the complexity that is a specific scientific field or specific topic, actually gives the public more confidence in science, and also gives the public a more food for thought, like more reflection on the experimental values and the experimental nature of the scientific field in general. You want to address it? No?
Okay. Hi. Thank you so much. This is so this is so beautiful. I love every minute of this. So I have a very hypothetical question for both of you. If you were to design a course for med students or nursing students that talks about why science needs art, what could it look like?
So it's really exciting. Like I think we could also talk about this like for hours. I can tell you that I actually taught a class at the Medical University in Vienna for 4 years during pandemics too. And it was at the hospital, and it was so it was a class for, I think, 5th and 6th semester of psychology and medicine. And this is the time when you're studying medicine in Austria where you get to have your first conversation with a patient, which is weird. For me, it was like too late. Like you should, like you should be talking to humans just before that, like not studying numbers and data and then learning about the body behind those numbers. But we were a group, I always had a group of around 10 to 15 students, and I was always accompanied by another teacher who was a psychologist or a doctor. I was not alone. I think it would have been too much for me. But the class was about the first anamnesis that they did to a patient, with a patient at the hospital. And we were there to accompany them. And the idea was that an artist was also part of the class, so they would find new ways of communicating with the patients. So it was about like, okay, how can we communicate differently? How can we communicate, not only putting the questions or doing the questions that the list and the book requires, but how do I communicate with another human being, a human myself? How do I really talk to them? How do I get close? Because I was a patient also in Austria for years with neurologists, and I think my neurologist, I was with him for about 4 or 5 years doing all the medical processes for MS. And I promise you that he never once looked me in the eye. Never once. He was looking at the computer or at the papers. He never once looked me in the eye. So for me, this was the beginning of like, okay, I'm an artist. I need to see how I can hack the system, teach some students. But yeah, I was lucky that I was invited to teach there. And it was really beautiful because they had to find new ways of getting in contact with the patients. So sometimes they brought songs, sometimes they were singing themselves, sometimes they wanted to paint, or sometimes it was like, tell me your experience of how you're feeling right now using these colors or using these musical instruments or whatever it is. And there's always like a new way of understanding what the other person is feeling, because you will never understand exactly what the other person is feeling. So if this person can tell me, okay, this is the color of my pain, I understand it differently and aesthetically and sensibly. So this was an experience that I already had, but a new course, I think it would be beautiful.
Yeah. But definitely, I think that more than like readings or like papers or whatever, reading some, I mean, I'm a big fan of being a media scholar and an academic myself. I really love theory, but I know that people don't read these days. But I find that so I don't teach any medical student, but I teach students who are in the sciences and like want to be engineers or like computer scientists. And one thing that really brings them to life is when I bring to the class somebody who is working in the field, especially if this somebody is coming from different walks of life and different cultural perspectives. One thing that I find that is very useful, for instance, is to have students exposed to people who have different cultures, because they learn that cultures are different and there's a respectful way to address other people that you only learn when you're interacting with these people. Yeah, and the other thing is I like to bring different professionals to students, or to shake things off by trying to make them think of technologies, the technologies that they use, and it's not just technologies like social media or like stuff that lies on the screen, but also technologies such as an MRI machine as something that can be seen differently. Something that is not just a piece of technology that is kind of black boxed. So taking it apart and say, okay, so this is how it is made. This is what does to the patient. This is the sound that they hear. And as a person who's done plenty of MRIs in my lab, because I was a patient, I have a genetic mutation, hello. So, so I'm very much screened. So I did all sorts of like screening, and that's really bad techno music, like really bad. So, so a lot of very creative ways to make it. Right? Isn't that right?
Okay, does someone else have a question? Otherwise, I would like to thank Roberta and Daniela so much for your insights. Thank you, Daniela, both of you, for coming here to Brampton, but you had a very long travel from Austria. So I would, yeah, just a little applause for both of you, and thank you so much.